Hey everybody, we're back here at the NASA Championships and we've got our Spec3 leaders here going into qualifying. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Charles Ford from Richmond, Virginia.
Awesome, and?
John McAvoy from Washington, D.C.
Great, and what we have here are two very experienced Spec3 runners and also our friends at Championship Motorsport. They are doing pole position awards. We wear a pair of gloves. You guys excited to get some brand new gloves here from Alpine Stars on pole? So. Yeah. Excellent. So talk to us about being on pole going to qualifying. What does that look like for you?
Today, it's more of a management day rather than trying to go out and be a hero today. It's getting to tomorrow. That's the plan.
Great. And do you feel about the weather today with it being a little bit rainy earlier? You think it's dried up enough today?
Yeah, we got lucky. Spec Miata just rolled through. They had roughly 40 cars in that run group. They literally just finished. So they're usually running 2-3 wide throughout the race. They cleaned that track up for us. We're good. Awesome.
And as far as your competition goes here at the rest of this class, a lot of friends out here that you see throughout the year?
Absolutely. We race with a lot of these guys that are on grid right now. So it's a close group.
That's awesome. And talking about friendship, what kind of fun things do you do in the paddock when people sleep at night?
I heard a rumor. It definitively couldn't have been me. I was gone. But these characters, Australian cartoon characters, appeared on Bubba's car here overnight. I just don't get it. But you know what? His a blue car. It is a bluey cartoon, so it kind of makes sense in that respect.
We love it. Well, Blue's very hot right now, so hopefully that fan favorites out there with all the kids carries forth and gets you up there on pole today.
Let's see.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We're going to come down here, talk to a couple more Spec3 racers, and as you can see, all the cars are exactly the same here in Spec3. Different liveries to represent the people and who they are. And speaking of our friends, we've got some great guys here, Sean O'Hara and Taylor Johnson, two people that a lot of folks want to see when we ask for some fan favorites. So give us a little more information where you're from and what your local region is.
So Mid-Atlantic is the local region, and I'm from just outside Richmond, Virginia.
Wonderful. And yourself, Taylor?
I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my home region is NASA Northeast.
All right. So as a local, do you feel like I have a little bit of an advantage knowing this track?
Absolutely not.
And why is that, sir?
I only come here when NASA's here, so we've all been here the same amount.
Awesome. And Sean, what does it mean for you qualifying for the championships? Is it a big thing?
Yeah, this is an event everybody looks forward to every year. It's a big deal. The tire budget's never been bigger than for this event, so it means a lot if you end up on that podium.
Awesome. Very exciting. And so since you're here in Pittsburgh, do you feel like a lot of the other racers that you've talked throughout NASA on social have come to you for information, local stuff, track knowledge, things like that?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me about local eats here, and I'm the worst person to ask. I go to the same 3 places, but I did work with Brett on publishing that article about good places to eat, so go check out Mad Mex, get a gobblerito.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Very, very cool. So one other thing I want to talk to you guys about is getting your car set up here for the weather today. We know it's been raining this morning, and now it's drying up a little bit. Concerns with the track conditions?
Not really. I think it's pretty dry by now. Obviously, grass is going to be a bad idea, but this is a loose track, so I'm dialing in, trying to reduce that understeer.
Awesome. Cool. And Ted, anything on your end for setup today for the race?
I've changed nothing. I'm just going to roll the dice.
Love it. Just run what you brought. So good. So for Spec3, for both of you, is this a class you both have always run in or something you've kind of gotten into over time?
This has been my one and only class. I think will be my one and only class. I can't beat the racing. I can't beat the price to race as often as we do. So I'm here for the long haul.
All right, you guys heard it here forever. That's Sean's way to go. And you, Taylor, you think you'll be here for a long time?
I think a lot of people will be upset if I bailed. So yeah, Spec3 until there's no Spec3 to race. And objectively, it made the most sense for me to race. And the people is what sold it.
That is so great. Well, thanks so much, guys. I know you got to get ready to get out there. Seems like you'll be heading out. I believe you go off at 1:19, I would think. Yep. So we'll just kind of keep talking a little bit here on Spec3 as you guys get ready. Here from the grid, we're going to be reporting some throughout the weekend, and then we're also going to go talk to other people at their cars. Our purpose today is to bring you all the action and get you some information on the different classes running here this weekend at the NASA Championships, and also make sure that you understand the different setups and the ways that people are looking at. We've got in-car cameras today also, which is really exciting. So make sure that you're tuned in for that. John McAvoy, which we spoke to earlier, we'll have an in-car camera running, so we'll be able to see the action there. Our great team here doing the live broadcast is going to try and make sure things correlate for you there. A fun story about Charles, also known as Bubba Ford, and his beautiful livery is that he, ironically, that car is not the first time that's happened, I learned. So before he woke up to a frozen livery, this weekend he's got a bluey livery, so it's pretty exciting that way. All right, we're going to keep walking up the grid here and see some of the other cars that are on track.
And welcome back to the 2023 NASA Championships at Pittsburgh International Raceway. Kelsey, thanks for covering all those guys getting ready to go racing. Now, I've got to tell a funny story. The motorsports world is a small world. She was standing there talking with Charles Ford, who had his car secretly decorated overnight. If you go back about 40 years ago, Charles's dad, who is here this weekend, and my dad spent a lot of Saturday nights doing some short track stock car racing together. So here it is, several decades and a generation later, and Charles is out here doing some road racing, and quite successfully, I might add. As you see, he's got a good starting position for today. DJ, we talked about one of the unique things in the NASA world is the combination of rolling starts and standing starts. In this race, we're going to see a rolling start and then 2 standing starts. Explain that to folks who may be new to NASA racing.
Yeah, so in this Group B, we're going to have Spec E46, Spec E30, and Spec 3. These are all 3 different generations of BMW 3 Series. So you're really seeing a strong presence from BMW and Mazda here this weekend. Spec E46 is our fastest class of these 3 groups that is made up of the E46 330i generation. They will be doing a rolling start. So you're going to see that 2x2 start that we saw in Spec Miata. Then you're going to see Spec E30 and Spec 3 rolling to the line behind the rolling start. So they're going to come to a stop at the start stand. The start stand will slowly raise their green flag, and when the green flag drops, not when the green flag comes up, but when the green flag drops, that is when these drivers will drop the clutch and try to get a good start in first. And not only is that first gear so important, but that first to second transition catches out so many drivers. And if you just take 2 seconds to get right back into second gear after a missed shift, you may lose your entire field. So these guys will be starting from a stop, and it's one of the most exciting racing we see doing those standing starts.
We have a second. We'll thank Hawk Performance. They've been around since 2008 as a supporter of NASA members with the best braking products in the industry, combined with a lucrative contingency program for HPDE, TT, and racers alike. Hawk Performance is dedicated to making sure drivers feel confident no matter what the road or track conditions bring. To see how Hawk supports NASA members, visit drivenasa.com. So the cars are all gridded up. We should see that pace car rolling here in just a moment, the GR Corolla pace car. And DJ's described the start to us. It's quite a thing to see, and it's something that takes quite a bit of orchestration. But when it all goes well, it does give you a very different look at the way it starts. And drivers don't know from week to week, DJ. It's up to the individual race directors to kind of decide, okay, how do we want to do this? It keeps the drivers and their crews on their toes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such exciting. I think it's fun for both the drivers and the spectators to see those standing starts. We've seen Spec E46 grow over the past 5 to 6 years. Coming from the Mid-Atlantic, it has crossed all across the nation. We see 20, 30, 40 car fields in Spec E46 across NASA regions. We also have Spec E30. In those interviews earlier, you could hear Chris Cabetto has won 3 national championships in Spec E30 over a decade ago. So you're talking about a class that's long lived, and a lot of people thought as those cars became a little older, it might be tougher, but we're seeing these fields still growing and still some of the tightest competition Spec E30. What is a relative newcomer in growth here is Spec 3. You had that interview with Taylor Johnson and John McAvoy. John McAvoy leading up that series in Spec 3. Taylor Johnson being a big proponent of Spec 3. He's going across all the regions on the East Coast, doing every region, trying to grow the Spec 3 field, and it's working. And that's one of the things we love about NASA is more of a family. You've got a lot of friends and family running these races, and Taylor Johnson putting out that word and working and making a positive environment in Spec 3. We're seeing builds all across the nation in Spec 3. And, you know, looking at one of our sponsors, Hawk Racing, Spec 3 has a specified brake pad, and that is the Hawk Performance race pad. So you'll see them being put to good use in that field. Now, remember, this is multi-class racing. Spec E46, Spec E30, and Spec 3 will each have their own wave. So you'll see them bunched up right now. That's just under the pace car. They will be breaking out in each wave. Michael Koenigsegg up front there in Spec E46. That car is built by Autosport Fab. Another competitor actually owns Autosport Fab, and we'll see him in a super touring race. That's Peter Gottblue. He built that race car for Koenigsegg, supports it. Koenigsegg being very good across the East Coast. He's been winning a lot of races, but Spec E46 is very tight up front, so do not expect a runaway from him. In Spec E30, the battle is going to be super tight there up front. Eric Pennington, a Great Lakes region, he was able to get that qualifying pole for the start of this race, but he has Jack Cabetto and Robert Grace right behind them. Robert Grace winning a couple national championships himself, and Jack Cabetto very, very hungry to make his impression on his first national championship, try to get that win.
As we get ready to go racing, I do want to keep an eye on that 07 of McAvoy. He does have the current track record here in that class. So we'll take a look at him, and the pace car lights now are out, and you'll see again something that is unique to NASA. You'll see a rolling start and 2 standing starts. So there you see the pace car to the left and green flag racing there in our first wave. They'll head off to turn number 1. They come down the hill. They'll look for the green. There's the green. And there is the Spec E46. That is wave number 1. Now watch wave number 2. They'll come to a complete stop. It's a standing start. As DJ said, you've got to be sure that you've got that first to second gear is so important. So we wait for the second one to go through. You see somebody taking a cone. Here's the standing start. We'll look for the green. And again, first gear, but it's that first to second gear that becomes so important. They're letting the first group get a gap. Let's watch the starter here, and you'll see those cars roll. And again, the launch is important, and there we are. There's the launch. You see one car jump out. In fact, they're going to be 4 wide as they come down. Now here is the third wave. So the third
Taylor Johnson going wide in that green Spec 3 car. He's able to pick up a position. Charles Ford under attack from John McAvoy going through turn 2. John McAvoy, regional leader, done very well throughout the field. He's giving a tight battle to Charles Ford on this beginning lap as we go overhead to our start of our Spec E30 standing start.
Ready to go. Good shot there. The drone will follow him down the front straightaway. So there is our third wave. So again, a rolling start, a standing start, a standing start. This shows you how things really can tighten up there. Into that blind left-hander of turn number 1. They're still double wide back there, about third place. There's Jack Cabetto in second spot, and everybody is away. So now you have, DJ, you've got 3 packs of cars spread out all the way around the track. You've got a battle for the lead, a battle for 4th place there as they come to the downhill section. And that is a great race for 3rd spot right behind Cabetto as we are racing all around the track. This is what makes this type of NASA racing so exciting.
Yeah, Pennington. Oh, we've got a Spec E46 slow on the inside of 6, but Pennington able to hold on to that initial lead. We're in car with Jack Cabetto right now in second. Robert Grace right behind, Jason Griskovich right behind, as well as they enter into these S's. Looks like Cabetto has a little bit of speed entering the S's, and Pennington gets a little out of shape in the middle of that S. These cars, as we talked about in the interview, these Spec E30s move around a lot. You see, they may seem way wide, sliding all over the place. That's where the grip is on these cars. That's how you have to drive these cars. So you're going to see a lot of that car moving around with Eric Pennington up front. Jack Cabetto not letting him get away right on the back of his bumper. Robert Grace.
Oh, yeah, I was just say earlier today when Kelsey was interviewing Jack, Jack says he puts on those neon gloves so nobody misses how busy he is behind the wheel. So you're behind the wheel with Jack Beto. That's first and second spot as they work around the racetrack. You see how busy his hands are, tucks in right in behind that car, number 52 of Pennington. As they come back up the hill, we've got multiple ways for you to watch the race today here. Cameras all around the track, and as you see now, overhead, and we can follow that battle of Pennington and Cabetto down the front straightaway. And DJ, the top 3 or 4 are still packed pretty close together. That is the Spec3 battle.
Yeah, you saw Eric Pennington actually defending on the inside going into turn 1. He went in the inside. Jack Beto didn't look like he was making a move. He moved right back out. So Eric Pennington already driving in his mirrors. This is going to help Jack Beto a little bit. If Eric's paying attention to what's behind him, he's going to have a tough battle ahead trying to get away from Jack Beto. But yeah, that local knowledge here with Eric Pennington, he's doing a great job. He handled start of that race very well. As we tune into our Spec E36, you see that Turner Motorsports livery car of Bill Griffin. He runs all over the nation in that Griffin racing car, but Michael Kanisak is the one currently leading in Spec E46 as we see some guys getting wide of the mud exit there of turn 1. Very good race. Griffin racing as we're seeing over Steve Nashor into turn 3 and 4. Seeing a lot of neon yellow this year across the Spec 46 field.
There was Griffin making a move. Let me give you the top 3 real quick in Spec E46. Michael Kanisak, 282 car lead. Eric Higginson, the 72 car second. And Rich Brainerd, the 183 is third. That's your top 3 right now in Spec E46. And very, very early in this one. So we've taken a look at E46, we've looked at Spec E30. Let's go now to Spec 3, where John McAvoy leads the way. And we mentioned that McAvoy, current track record holder. So the Spec 3 is McAvoy in the 07. In fact, let's go for a ride with John McAvoy. That's in car with McAvoy. Look at the luck picture. Tape on the dash, but that is your leader. In Spec 3, the 07 of McAvoy, leading over Charles Ford right now. About a 2-second gap as he comes over the hill. Again, McAvoy, current track record holder. And DJ talking to his lap. He looks like he's hitting his marks perfectly right now.
Yeah, John McAvoy has been running this car for over a decade. He's very familiar with this car. Look how patient he is through these S's. And that patience is really rewarded with these S's. You know, we can already see that it starts to get a little bit hot. He's a little wide for the S, but he nails the exit there, and that's what's so important at race, going over and using a little bit of curb. Spec 3 is softly sprung for a race car, and we say for a race car, but what that does is it really lets them use that curbing without upsetting the grip of the car. Look how smooth he is through that section. John McAvoy definitely knows these cars, but that is a surprise. They gave a 4-way to Charles Ford. Charles Ford maybe had a bit of maybe 2 wheels off during that last lap. Hopefully he'll be able to catch back up, but that means Andreas Schmidt and Taylor Johnson are now right on the back of Charles Ford. So Charles Ford might have been aiming for that first place, but now he's battling out the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th with those guys. This is a tight battle. You know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 3rd, 4th, 5th. They're all within about a second of each other, so that's a tight battle for the podium in Spec 3.
See one car off the pace there, just went out of camera view, so hopefully that car can keep running. One more quick point on McAvoy. You know, in less than perfect track conditions, McAvoy, looking at timing and scoring, only about 0.5 of a second off that track record. And again, you've got a track that's still maybe damp in a few spots and has no track temperature at all. So McAvoy laying down some good laps as now he's extended that lead over Ford to about 5.5 seconds. So that's the story in Spec 3. McAvoy leads the way. So let's visit the guys at Spec E46 for a moment. As we said, Michael Kanisak was leading the way there. His gap's about 4.3 seconds. in that class. But you see there, those cars battling for position. That is a nose-to-tail battle right there. And is that the 527? I believe it is. Battle for position. In fact, side by side, they'll take a look. Great racing there. And now I am seeing a yellow flag, and I wonder, DJ, if it was for that one car that had pulled off just a moment ago. So,
well, we see the exit of 17. There was a Spec E36 off. We saw Ruben actually very heads-up driving. So you may be side by side with the driver, and you see that double yellow come out. Ruben very heads-up, able to back out, even though he was side by side, focused on his race. This is one of the big abilities that NASA has, is not only do you grow up in NASA, where you're going from HPD 1 to 4, you can go time trial, you can go racing, but you're working through the same safety rule set all the way through. And this is one of the strengths of National Autosport Association, is they're heads up. Our drivers are heads up. We've already had extremely clean racing in these qualifying races. We saw Spec Miata, known for a little bumping and grinding, very clean in that race. We're seeing, again, another 3 intense spec battles in this race, and guys are keeping it very clean, very heads up by Michael Rubin on that yellow flag. But this is not going to play in Michael Koenigseck's favor. He was able to make up a little gap, and that's going to bring these guys back together.
Hey, let me look at Spec E30 for a second, because we'll double check time and scoring. But Eric Pennington, now they're showing him off the pace back in 11th spot. So Pennington, who had led, and again, we'll double check timing and scoring. Let's take a second right now. Let's give you top 5 in all 3 of our classes. Good time to do a reset. We'll start with Spec E30. Jack Cabetto in the 14, the 74 of Robert Grace, the 73, Jason Griskavich, Cameron Beatty in the 120, and Chris Cabetto, the 78. That's your top 5. In fact, they just go by timing and scoring now. Spec E46, the 282, Michael Kanisak, Eric Hagginson, the 72, Casey Mayshore, the 615, Rich Brainerd, 183, and Jason Rickey in the 775. That's Spec E46 in top 5 as we ride along with Jack Cabetto. And then Spec 3, we mentioned McAvoy, the 07, Charles Ford in the 1, Andreas Schmidt, the 23, Taylor Johnson in the 216, and Sean O'Hara in the 19 as you ride with Jack Cabetto. And DJ will have to take a look and see what happened to Pennington. In fact, he may even be off the track right now, but we'll ride with the leader of Spec E30. And then we jump in with McAvoy with, like I say, that good luck charm picture on the dashboard. So there in just a brief second, you got to ride along with the Spec E30 leader and the Spec 3 leader. And a real quick tip of the cap to the technical crew. If we get busy this afternoon or tomorrow, but DJ, the technical crew here is giving us some great pictures to look at, and always in the right place at the right time, as again, this field's going to bunch up. This will make for an interesting restart as we're about 11 minutes into this race.
Yeah, we're going to see some of our leaders. They were able to make a breakaway. John McAvoy able to make that breakaway at Spec 3. He was able to get past Charles Ford at the start there, and he was able to build a gap of about 5.5 seconds. So Charles Ford has another chance to get back to the front of this race. But, Charles Ford, he's also going to be knowing that he has an additional chance tomorrow. So we'll see how that battle shapes up on our restart. In Spec E46, Michael Koenigseck able to make a gap in Spec E46 as well over Eric Hagginson. So that will tighten back up with Casey Mayshore in third. In Spec E30, this was a big change. Eric Pennington leading over the class. Jack Cabetto now inheriting the lead in Spec E30. Jack Cabetto always right there on the back of Pennington. Just a small mistake can make the difference in these spec classes. These guys are really pushing it to the limit. And you see Robert Grace now in second with Jason Griskavich in third. Jack Cabetto, Robert Grace, and Jason Griskavich all run in the Mid-Atlantic region together a lot. So you see them in very tight battles. They're used to battling each other. So that's actually going to give them some advantages and disadvantages where they know where each other are good at. They know where they can poke and get into their mind. Because at the end of the day, in these spec classes, you don't have any difference between the cars. So it might be more strategy that get it done than superior driving.
And there you see the 33 car, Matthew Diagimarino. That's the reason we're under this caution, and that's the car we saw slow down, so getting the push back into the paddock area. So the 3-3 car, the Spec E36 machine, I believe getting the push back on to pit road. So shouldn't be too much longer before we go back to green flag racing.
Yeah, you're going to see these drivers using some curb. They seem to be accelerating, with some gusto. Is even when you're under a double yellow, you are supposed to catch the leader. Obviously, you need to use caution. You should be driving at 8 or 9/10 versus flat out, but you are expected to catch the leader. You're not supposed to dawdle around. So we're seeing some good driving by these drivers. They're trying to catch the pace car. The sooner that all these cars can catch the pack and the pace car, the sooner we can get restarted. So good heads up driving by these drivers in the championships.
We're closing in on about halfway. If you're just joining the broadcast, what you're watching now are the qualifying races. So yesterday they set qualifying laps, so the fastest car starting up front. Today then into the qualifying race. The way you finish the race is the way you start the championship race tomorrow. So there's 3 legs to getting this championship. Qualifying, your best lap, qualifying race where you finish, and then into the championship. So probably going to be another lap or 2 behind the pace car, because they're going to let some of the cars unlap themselves, come back around behind the pace car and tag in at the back. And that's just occasionally, DJ, you know this from racing, where the pace car comes up, it might pick up a lap car as opposed to the leader. They want to let those cars go past the pace car and tag in at the end of the field.
Yeah, this is definitely going to add a interesting restart to this race. So we have 3 classes out there. So it looks like our pace car has picked up our leader, Michael Koenigsegg, overall in Spec E46. But you're noticing that there seems to be an older 3 Series in between those 2 Spec E46s. This is part of multi-class racing right there. So Michael Koenigsegg have a little bit of an advantage of an out-of-class car between him and second place in Spec E46. So that's going to help him on the restart a little bit. But further down the field, we're really going to see a big mix of these Spec E30s, Spec 3s, and Spec E46s. So it's going to be an interesting restart here.
Lights are still on the pace car, so we'll follow and see what happens there. And look in the field. The field seems to all be in tow properly. And like you said, they picked up the leader, not the lap car. So we'll see next time by, will we see the lights go out on that pace car? Quick second to tell you that since 2002, Toyo Tires has been the official tire of NASA. Season after season, NASA competitors are rewarded with generous contingency awards and unparalleled support. Toyo Tires is committed to supporting NASA competitors for all their tire needs. Visit drivenasa.com for more information. And right now, they're not punishing those Toyo Tires too hard because they're behind the pace car.
Yeah, all 3 of these classes are on Toyos. Spec E46 and Spec 3 on those Toyos this weekend. Chris Cabetto able to make up 3 positions during this Spec E30 race. He is now up to 5th. Chris Cabetto battles it out with his son, Jack Cabetto, in the Mid-Atlantic region. Jack Cabetto's age gap has helped him be up front in Spec E30. Chris Cabetto, though, able to make up that gap. We were talking to him before this weekend, and Chris Cabetto already has won 3 national championships. This is a very seasoned driver already in Spec E30. Now, Every driver has their excuses, says Jack Cabeto has the better car of the two. We'll see how this shakes out. So there's a little bit of rivalry between that son and father relationship, but the smiles we see on Chris Cabeto when his son is doing so well regionally and today here so far in this championship race, it will be all smiles for Chris Cabeto no matter where he ends up during this race.
So at least another lap here behind the pace car. Hopefully we'll get him back for some more green flag racing. So you get there, double yellow there at turn 4. A little bit earlier, if we get that shot again, there is a great spot. There's a spectator hill that's kind of positioned, I guess, in between like turns 3 and 4, and you're up on a rise, and what a great spot to sit and watch. You can park your car up there. They've got a bunch of picnic tables, and then the hillside is actually terraced, where you can come and, bring your setup and sit on the terraced hill overlooking. And it's right in there, kind of between turns 3 and 4, and what a great place if you're coming out here just for a spectator event to sit and watch. That is some prime viewing of the racetrack. I was over there yesterday chatting with a couple of folks who were watching during some of the warm-up sessions. Double yellow is still all the way around the racetrack. I'd love to see this one get back green because I think there's still some good racing to go here, especially as you mentioned a minute ago, DJ. Cabeto, Grace, Chris Gavage, those guys race together a lot. Those are 3 names that we're used to seeing together, at least in this part of the country, when it comes to Spec E30 racing. So I'd love to see those guys get a chance to duke it out a little bit. But they're not going to push too hard. If I'm sitting there in 3rd place, the final lap or 2 of this qualifying race, I'm probably not going to do anything real dumb to mess my chances up for tomorrow. But I also have a helmet on and I'm in a race car, so maybe I do.
One thing is we saw Eric Pennington drop a lot of places out of 1st place. We still show him on timing and scoring as running, so he's dropped down to 11th place. We know he's fast, so he's hoping this goes green as soon as possible. He can make up a couple positions. He's got his work cut out for him. But this is a tough class. You look through this field, you got Robert Grace. He has multiple Spec E30 national championships. Chris Cabeto, he has multiple national championships. Carter Hunt, who started Spec E30 over a decade ago, is out here in Spec E30. You've got some serious competition here in Spec E30. So all the better for the winner of the Spec E30 race. But it's going to be a battle, not only today, but tomorrow.
I think we may be setting ourselves up for something pretty fun here. You see the lights just went out on the pace car, and with timing, DJ, it looks like we're going to come by. We're going to get a green flag and a white flag. So it will be a 1-lap race to the finish. So let me give you something to think about. And let's just remember at the end, you mentioned it. Right now, Pennington is in 11th place. Let's pay attention and see how many spots Pennington can make up here on this last lap. The pace car will pull to the left. The leaders will come by. This will be a single file rolling restart as we are ready to go here. And there is a green flag. And indeed, it is green and white. The look from overhead. A 1-lap shootout. We want to see where Pennington comes. From 11th, where can he end the race up? As the field passes by, if you're up front, you don't want to do anything dumb.
Casey Mashore and Eric Hagginson side by side through turn 1 and 2. This is a big change. Eric Hagginson might have been held up by his Spec E30 at the start of that race. So it's Casey Mashore and Eric Hagginson battle. Casey looks like he has the lead over Eric Hagginson. That's a position change in Spec E46 right up front. Very well taken care of by Mashore. That is a big position change. We saw Spec E30 go by as well. Robert Grace pushing the back of Griskovich and Cabeto. So we would love to see when they come around how that turns out. John McAvoy going to be under attack by Charles Ford. He is not, John McAvoy, able to build a little bit of a gap. He is now side by side entering the S's by a Spec E46 car. There's our leader in Spec E46 and overall, Michael Koenigsegg. He was able to build a gap, but it looks like Casey Mashore is actually catching up right there. 6:15 of Casey Mashore. quick. He is now right on the back of Michael Koenigsegg, getting a little wide. This battle is not over in Spec E46. This is overall lead and in class for Spec E46. They're coming down that back straight. Casey right on the bumper, taking advantage of that draft. They're down to the last 2 corners. Remember, they still have a championship race to go. Casey Mashore just being behind him, coming out of 16 and 17. Wow, this is impressive drive by Casey Mashore, who was in 3rd, moved his way up into 2nd, and right behind Michael Koenigsegg for tomorrow's race.
So there is your overall winners. Let's take you class by class here to let you know where everybody finishes. We want to see did Pennington able to make up some ground, and we'll let you know, because as they finish today, that is how they will start tomorrow. So we'll let timing and scoring reset as you see cars side by side coming across the line. But you wanted an interesting finish, you got it. And